right? Because we already know from previous data that when employees have friends at work, when leaders feel like they belong, when they feel emotionally connected to the people that they're working with, and there's high trust there, retention goes up, right? So it's not surprising that with these internal mastermind and discussion groups, that folks like you are really well equipped to be facilitating for these organizations, because so many of the things that come up require a coaching conversation to move through them, right? And the last thing that these organizations, hint, hint, should be creating is an environment where the blindfolded are leading the blindfolded, right? We don't want that. So peer discussion is great, but you always need to have someone in the room. I'm going to say an adult in the room, but you guys know what I mean, right? You need to have like the expert in the room who can say, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not take the conversation there. Let's look at where the answers are. So it's really important that a certified coach is in the room helping to lead and facilitate these mastermind groups. Now, one of the other things that I mentioned was live trainings versus pre-recorded trainings. And pre-recorded trainings sound like a great idea. And certainly if you have a topic that you have developed and just crushes the results and people love it, it could be worth it to actually turn that into an on-demand training that can be licensed to an organization. It's a lot more involved than most people think. One of our high-end clients who's worked with us for years here at Bold House ended up taking 6 to 7 months completely off from their business during the pandemic just to build an online training program. And that's how long it took, was 7 months. And this is someone who really already had all of the content built, but it was a matter of building it in a learning management system. And it really cost a lot to do that. But here's something else to consider. And again, this is from the Brandon Hall, their 2023 Outlook report, which I'm sure they'll be publishing publicly soon. But I'm reading from the hard copy here that they shared with us. Almost 3/4 of organizations, 73% of organizations say that classroom learning, whether in person or virtual, is the most important learning modality for leadership development. I'm going to say that again, you guys. 73% of organizations say that in classroom learning, whether in person or virtual, is the most important learning modality for leadership development. And this is why, for those of you who were with us for our masterclass a few weeks ago, when we released the 8 new modules of Workshop Sunday, which is our white labeled training content that coaches can take and deliver to their own clients. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, that's Workshop Sunday as in ice cream, not as in the day of the week. So Workshop Sunday, think spelling ice cream, not Sunday as in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. That program really flies off the shelf because companies are asking for coaches to come in and take the conversations that they are having in one-on-one coaching and then go in and really develop the foundational skills that leaders need. That really, coaching conversations only covers one aspect of that, right? So if you're thinking about what am I going to do to scale my business in 2023 and beyond, and you're thinking, should I invest in taking 6 months to build an on-demand learning program, or should I be introducing things like facilitated masterminds and training to the business? One and eventually a portion of that off to reinvest in the business. And then you can hire the people who know how to do all that technology stuff for you. So always think about what is the course of least resistance, the course of least obstacle in order to scale the coaching business. So that's really on the program side of things, right? You've got your live trainings, your pre-recorded trainings, your group programs, whether team coaching or the mastermind type activities, and live events. And you've got the choice, am I selling this to the public or am I selling this privately to top tier clients? One sale brings in 50,000, 100,000, $500,000. and they're going to fill it with their people. And I'm really going to make sure that they get what they need. From my perspective, from a proactive strategic standpoint, I think there's a no-brainer opportunity as to which path you take. Eventually, when the business is at $1 million, you can start saying, okay, now we want to build things out to the public, but I've got an advertising budget. I can hire the people to build that machine. We call it the Willy Wonka machine of online marketing, right? If you guys remember the Willy Wonka movie, right? Remember, there's the big Willy Wonka mobile that they get on, and you've got like 50 Oompa Loompas putting the double bubble cola in the back. And then they, finally turn it on. And what does it do? It only goes 1 mile an hour, and it makes a huge mess everywhere, right? So that's the truth of online marketing. We've been using that analogy for a decade now, and it still holds true. All right. So then there's the people side of things, right? There's the people side of things. And when you're scaling with people, you can scale with either full-time people, you can scale with part-time people, part-time employees, full-time employees, or you can scale with independent contractors. And we call that building your bench. We call that building your bench. And the reason we call it that is really, I'm a huge sports fanatic. In fact, the NCAA tournament is starting out on the pitch, right? You guys are the sole player out there, and you are just running yourself ragged, and you don't have any relief on your bench. And so we are huge fans. We run a workshop called Build Your Bench, all because folks really need to be able to have those other coaches, those other consultants, those other trainers that can be put in the game to support your clients. Now, here's where this gets interesting. And the reason, by the way, the bench is so great is because they are a profit center to your business. There are very few profit centers in your business. Your sales team is a profit center, you are a profit center, and your bench is a profit center. Virtually everything else in your company is a cost center. So every time you're making an investment, it's like, am I investing in a profit center right now? If you're investing in yourself, you're a profit center. But if you are, redesigning a website, guess what? That's a cost center. Marketing is actually a cost center. It's not a profit center. Sales is a profit center. Bench members are a profit center because they are only paid when they're in the game. They're only paid when you're getting paid. And so it allows you to have more scale in your business. Now, when you think about the programs that make the most sense to offer into organizations that are scalable, things like live events, team coaching, the mastermind type groups, the live trainings, whether virtual or in person, those programs all require you to have more people bandwidth, right? You need more people bandwidth to deliver those types of leveraged programs into those top tier coveted organizations that you guys are working with. So this is why I said at the beginning, when you look at scaling the business, there are only a few paths to do this. I mean, you're going to hit the time money wall in your business as a coach. If your coaching is your service lane and you are your delivery mechanism, then you hit the time money wall very, very quickly. And we see most coaches really kind of tap out at about 350,000. You can get to about 350 as a top tier coach, but it's tough and you're exhausted typically, not always. But by and large, that's kind of the experience at that $350,000 level without an actual scaling mechanism in the business to create that bandwidth for you. It becomes a time money wall issue. And that's why I was saying, look, you've got to have your people, whether it's full-time employees, part-time employees, or your bench members. And if you don't have a bench, highly recommend you get it. We have our workshop coming up April 14th on building a bench of coaches in your business and how you do that without pulling your hair out. And then you can also add, obviously, your cost center, your assistants, your CPA, your bookkeeper. And that's great. That's great operations in your business, but that's not actually a scalable business model. That's your cost centers. That's your overhead. So you've only got these two lanes. You've got programs, you've got people, and in the ideal world, you identify the programs you want to scale, and then you build your bench to be able to deliver those programs. So that now, to Michael Gerber's wonderful quote, right? And I'll leave you guys with this as we open up for questions. He said, if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. And so, I mean, it's such a great quote from Michael Gerber. He's a little bit of a lunatic, brilliant, and also a little bit of a lunatic too, right? But if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job, and it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. So as you're thinking about, wait a second, that is not the experience I want to have, I'm going to identify the programs and I'm going to identify the people that I need to actually have a scaling strategy in my business this year. And I'm not going to take the approach of merely throwing more spaghetti at the wall, hoping more of it sticks, exhausting myself, and continuously running up against the time money wall. If you guys have a question, I am happy to open up the lines. You can raise your hands if you would like to ask a question. If not, I'll keep going, but you guys can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. I'll share with you a few more great statistics on here as we talk. Some of the great statistics that I think is really relevant to you guys. One of my favorite statistics out of here is that 70% of employers agree now that some type of leadership development is needed for every employee in the organization. So this is another reason why you really need to scale, because if you are a one-on-one coach and you do not have a bench and you do not have the bandwidth to really offer coaching across the organization, that's going to be a problem. Because organizations, and we heard this loud and clear, you guys, at Brandon Hall. We heard this loud and clear at Brandon Hall. And that is, organizations no longer want to, segment off the elite few, and only invest in them. They can't create culture change in the organization when they say, you know what, you are the 100 folks that we want to invest in, and forget about the rest of you. We're just going to put all of our time and energy into these 100 individuals and give them the input they need. So that's really interesting. So organizations expecting leadership development to increase. So this is where they're looking to take more investment. 68% expect to go more into mid-level leaders and 67 into frontline leaders. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Vernon, I'm going to unmute you here. And so let me just click on here. All right, Vernon, you are unmuted. Oh, or not. All right, I will unmute Ryan. Ryan, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted now.
There you go. Good morning.
Hey, Angelique. It's been a while. Good morning. I'm great. I've got a comment question for you.
Sure.
I'm working with a Fortune 500 company. They put together a leadership podcast that goes through all the aspects of developing leaders within their organization. So it's very specialized, and they're delivering it to their employees. Have you seen a lot of that, specifically just in the leadership space with large organizations and mid-sized companies?
Yeah, it was actually one of the big sort of sidebar hallway conversations. I know they joke and call it LobbyCon. So that was actually a big topic at Brandon Hall and LobbyCon, for all the folks hanging out, at the coffee and the bar and all of that. So it definitely is. I think what was really interesting was, it seems like the trend is that they're using it to bring subject matter experts from across the organization to give them visibility and for knowledge sharing, which I really loved that. And I think one of the favorite things that I heard was there was one organization who was doing something like that, where they had a more junior level employee who would go on LinkedIn and search on employees from all over the world who worked for their company and go see what their own employees and their own leaders were posting on social media, specifically on LinkedIn. And the folks who were posting something really interesting on LinkedIn, they were inviting them to come on the podcast and talk about what
Oh,
they had
yeah.
posted.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And so it was interesting because it seems like that's one of those examples of glue. Now, the downside, I feel like, of course, is when there's a one-way conversation,
Mhm.
and I think so. The other thing that a lot of organizations were talking about was doing something that was more interactive, something more like this, recording it and then
Yep.
releasing it as a podcast into the organization so that there's more two-way dialogue. And I think it's more of that multimodality approach that seems to be the most popular because employees want to participate in the conversation. And the younger generation, frankly, it was pretty amusing, some of the conversations about Gen Z, not in a defamatory way or a negative way, but just they demand to be included, and like there's no excluding them from the conversation. And when they're not given a chance for it to be a conversation, they create their own sidebar conversations and go off and do their own thing. So either you give them an opportunity to have two-way dialogue and community, or they will just create it on their own. But that's what I've seen the most, and that was really what seems to be trending, is this idea of bring in a subject matter expert from across the organization, let different voices have the microphone, and then facilitate two-way dialogue, and then capture that and publish that, whether you publish it as a video, whether you publish it as a podcast. But that kind of three-step process really seems to be gaining some traction.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, and it's great talking to you.
Great talking to you, and congratulations on that amazing new opportunity. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to talk later about that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm thrilled for you. That's awesome. And, I think what's really exciting too is that organizations have really been woken up in a different way. And it's so exciting for people like you who are bringing that transformation in and can really help them infuse and really distribute that message across their organization. So this is like your time for sure.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Cool.
All right, Ryan, I know you have a question as well. So if you want to unmute yourself, you can. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Angelique. How are Comcheck? You can hear me okay?
I can.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Hey, really appreciate you doing this, and hello to all your listeners out there. Quick question with regards to business owners, coaches, and particularly your points about building bench strength. How important is it to have the credentials, the wallpaper, if you will, associated with those with that bench? And if so, what certifications do you recommend? And thank you.
Oh my goodness, it's very important. In fact, I've been out at a lot of conferences this year, and it's interesting because the theme that we hear from decision makers over and over again is that they really actually love working with the boutique firms, the boutique consulting firms, the boutique training firms, the boutique coaching firms, because they actually can get much higher level talent. And if you think about, Ryan, for a second, say an Accenture, right? The entire Accenture business model is built on bench strength. Of course, those are employees most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes they actually are contractors. But most of the time they're employees. But you've got this bench strength, and you go in and you have a managing director or a partner who sells an engagement. And then the senior manager comes in and is responsible for delivering on time, on promise, on budget. Of course, they never do any of those three, these large consulting companies, but they're basically managing a group of pretty junior people for the most part. You have a couple of managers, but you could have, 20, 25 consultants to every manager that's out there. So you've got this and when you're talking about a consultant in Accenture, you're typically talking about someone with 1 to 5 years of experience, or maybe 1 to 4 years of experience. So the competitive advantage that the boutique coaching company has, or the consulting company, is really the bench strength of, look, we're bringing in folks with 10, 15, 20 years of experience. There are no, junior folks here. Not that you might not have one or two junior folks, maybe to do stakeholder interviews or to run some assessments, or, handle some of the smaller tasks that make sense for them to do. But by and large, the advantage, the competitive differentiator with the boutique firm, is that you're really getting that top shelf talent coming in. And so what are the credentials that you're looking for? I mean, first of all, you're looking for years of experience, right? You really want folks who they're road tested. They're not green. They didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. They're really, folks who have some industry experience. And ideally, you've got a bench strength with some industry diversity if you serve different industries, or if you're specific, as you are, then you want that bench strength in your industry, in your field. The next thing is, obviously, from a coaching perspective, you want to make sure that you've got folks who are certified through some type of recognized coaching school, coaching certification, whether IPEC, ICF, or otherwise. And then ideally, you also want to have some credentials. I love when folks have someone on their team that's a PMP, some type of project manager. I love seeing folks who have assessment certifications, whether DISC, 5 behaviors, predictive index. We're big fans of Kolbe, Kolbe, for those of you who aren't familiar with Kolbe. So we have someone on our team who is certified in NLP. We have someone on our team who is certified in predictive index. We have 2 people certified in Kolbe, for example. We have multiple certified coaches on our team, our faculty. So, and I think it's about variety. I think it's about asking your client base what they most value. But I like to see it across coaching. I like to see it across some consulting modalities, whether Six Sigma or PMP or Black Belt. And I love seeing some people assessments in there. And then there are some other really cool ones that we love, like the 12-week year. I know some other folks have kind of copied off that, but the 12-week year was sort of the original. You can have someone certified in that, which basically allows your firm to run 12-week sprints with your clients, which is really effective. So we love those. And we love some of the new certifications around things like change intelligence, emotional intelligence, decision-making intelligence. Some of those modalities that are out there, Ryan, are becoming increasingly important, because when you look at what organizations really want, it's that agility. It's that ability to operate in this VUCA world that we operate in. So those are some of the things that I really love to see. But think about years of experience. Think about having diversity of certification and credentials, and think about what's going to make sense in your industry specifically, as well as what service offerings you're looking to scale. Because whether it's training, whether it's consulting, whether it's, coaching, you need the right certifications, or project management. If you are doing consulting, you've got to have those project managers. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic insights. I couldn't write fast enough, but again, thank you, and appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ryan. I know. I can't wait until these guys come out with the recording option that's just built right into LinkedIn, so we can save these and republish them. And I need to get better about recording and repurposing. Also, it looks like we have a question from David. So give me 1 second to pull you up on stage here, David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I've been an orals coach for government contractors for many years. It's like competitive bidding and that kind of stuff. It's kind of a niche market. So I've been thinking of expanding into general B2B to coach public speaking as employee development.
Oh,
so you've
wow.
been around all these areas. Is there a market for standalone public speaking?
Oh my goodness. Is there ever, David? The short answer, yes. Just cut right to the point.
Okay.
I think what's really interesting, and we heard this, it's in the Brandon Hall data, it's everywhere. Communication is everything. Communication is everything now. One of my favorite themes that we heard recently is that internal leaders need to think like marketers.
Right.
Internal leaders need to think like marketers. They need to evangelize the key messages internally. They need to evangelize the programs that they're investing to get their employees bought in. So while public speaking was really thought of for a lot of times the subject matter experts who would present at conferences, the subject matter experts who would be brought in to help with the sales presentation, and the senior leaders who would have to speak at top leaders meetings and major conferences themselves. Now there's the added element of the subject matter experts and the leaders evangelizing internally. And what you just heard from Vernon was around the podcast, and the internal podcasts are taking off, the internal sort of audio discussions, the internal masterminds, the internal coffee withs, all of that is taking off. And so now you have really just as much demand from the employee audience as you do from the customer audience, as from the community audience, as from the investor audience. So what I would do as you're looking at taking this public into the B2B space, the public speaking, I would make sure that you're speaking to organizations about all of the key stakeholder groups, customers and clients, investors, community, because boy, a community can really derail your business, right? Like if you look at what's going on right now with Jack Daniels and the distillery that they built, and that fungus that's growing all over everyone's homes because of the distillery that they built. I mean, it's just insane. They have a major community issue that's going on. Then you look at the employees, you look at the talent in the market, the target talent they want to recruit, and then the regulators. The gas and electric companies, the oil companies, the automotive companies, they've got the regulators. So you really, if I were you, I'd build an ecosystem visually of all of these stakeholder groups, and I'd put sort of public speaking in the center of that. And when you go out to talk to these B2B organizations, I would talk about, look, you've got subject matter experts who need to talk to all of these stakeholder groups, and they're all equally important. And any one speaking opportunity that goes off the rails with one stakeholder group will instantaneously infect the entire ecosystem of stakeholders, because that's really where we are now, right? If you screw up with your community that you operate in, next thing you know, the media, the regulators, your customers, your employees, there's massive backlash from everyone because you had one subject matter expert or one leader go out and really screw it up. So I would really have a visual for that, but oh my goodness, there is no shortage of need for public speaking skills inside of the B2B space, like bar none.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I felt. I just wanted to get an outside perspective from somebody who's
no question. You're not too close to the tree on the bark of the tree on this one. It is big. It is there. I think that I think one of the challenges will be getting to the right people. And one group that is notoriously overlooked, decision maker wise, are the vice presidents of corporate communications. And they're often the ones who deal with the fallout, or they're the ones dealing with the subject matter experts that struggle to communicate effectively from stage or from platform. So I would spend an awful lot of time getting in front of corporate communications people.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. My pleasure, David. My pleasure. All right, you guys. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said, our goal is to host these once a week, as long as I'm not traveling. I am traveling next week, but I'll be back the following week, and we'll continue to host these discussions. And some of the we will sort of vary between evergreen topics like today, as well as things that are urgently happening in the market and what that's going to mean for you and what you need to be talking to your clients about. Some ripped from the headlines topics, interspersed with some evergreen topics. So that's what we're going to be doing. Glad to have you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want more, head over to boldhouse.com. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.